Gunnar's Daughter, Chapter 22. She then went out and put on her skis, binding them fast to her feet with thongs. She had chosen a staff with a long iron spike and a ring. She tied the boy firmly on her back with a kerchief and went rapidly out of the yard northward. The sun was now going down, and the crust was so hard that her skis scarcely left a mark in the snow, though she was carrying the boy on her back. She made for the river and followed its course upstream till she found a place where the ice was safe. Then she went on up the slopes, where it was heavy going. She was tired, too, after her journey earlier in the day. When she had gained the high ground, she stopped and looked back. The sky was now red over the fjord. There was no sign of life as far as the eyes could reach, but at that time there was much forest and copsewood over the countryside. Vigdis went up towards Grefsen. She did not move fast, and the stars were coming out before she reached the houses. There was no light to be seen when she entered the yard, and all the doors were closed. Vigdis went up and knocked with her ski staff, but no one came out, and there was not a living sound except that of the cows moving in the byre. She saw then that no one was at home. While she stood thinking what was to be done, she put the boy down to get her breath. As she did so, he plucked at her cloak and pointed to the south. Vigdis looked that way, and now she saw a red glare in the sky where Vadin should be. It grew larger and larger, and with it was a cloud of black smoke. The boy was afraid and began to whimper, hiding his head in her lap. And then she lifted him up, saying, "Now they are burning your grandfather and Asha, your foster mother. Look well, boy, that you may never forget it." She could see now how the fire was spreading. The flames shot up, coloring the smoke red and golden. The barn had caught, hay and corn whirled up into the sky in sparks, and it became as light as day, even where Vigdis stood. Then she saw many men on skis running quickly across the fields towards the river, and she thought it unwise to stay longer and best to make for the forest. Vigdis took the boy up again and went as quickly as her skis would run. She thought it best to follow the tracks leading from the house for some distance, so that any who might come after her would not pick her trail up so easily. And she made for the northward, for she knew there were folk living by the great lake beyond the valley, and she thought they would not search for her so far as that. It was dark when she came into the forest, and she went by the light of the snow among the trees. The way was uphill, and it was bad going, so that she fell forwards many times and cut her face and hands so that the blood flowed. The night was cold, but she had no feeling of it, for the sweat poured off her, and her heart was beating so that she almost thought it would burst. Worse than that, the boy hung on her neck, and as she went uphill, he nearly strangled her. At long last she found she was at the top of the ridge, and it was easier going, but it looked almost as though no one had passed this way before. When she turned round, Vigdis still saw the glare in the south between the treetops, but it was now much paler. After a while the boy began to whimper again. He was cold and hungry. "Do not weep, little one," said his mother. "Soon we shall come to some dwelling. Then you shall have porridge and be put to bed." "Shall we soon be there?" asked the boy. "Yes, now we shall soon be there," said Vigdis. She unfastened her cloak, wound it about the child so that he lay as in a bag, and tied him tightly on her back. She now saw a white glade running downhill. Using her staff as a brake, she zigzagged down the slope, but the ground was rough, and every time her skis were brought to a halt, she felt her knees shaking, and the sweat poured off her. The night was now starry, but it was hideously dark in the forest, for the moon would not rise till towards morning. At last she saw a white plain below her, and guessed it must be the lake. She found a way down and started on it, but ran against a tree and fell. And then she felt that the binding of her left ski had broken. She had a knife on her and cut some wides and mended it as well as she could, setting the boy down in the snow the while. It was some time before she was ready to go on, and then she asked the boy as she lifted him up, "Are you cold, my son?" "No," he said. She felt his hands, and they were like ice. He felt nothing when she pinched him.